This book isn't about becoming a financial genius or discovering some hidden market secret. It's about a much more familiar struggle, the gap between what we know we should do with our money and what we actually do. The author's core argument is that you don't need a stricter, more guilt-inducing budget. What you need is a better designed system, a set of guardrails that makes the right choice the easy choice. It reframes money management not as a test of moral fiber, but as a behavioral design project. You learn to observe your own patterns, adjust the environment around you, and then let simple automation handle the rest. To make this practical, we're not going to juggle 100 different rules. We're going to anchor this entire journey to just two numbers, a personal dashboard for your financial well-being. The first is your impulse purchase count. Think of this as your static indicator. It measures the amount of reactive, emotional spending that's creating noise in your finances. The second is your automation coverage. This is your engine indicator. It shows how much of your financial life is running smoothly on its own. Before we learn a single new tactic, the first step is to get a baseline for these two figures. This way, every change we implement isn't based on wishful thinking. It's verified by data. We move from a state of vague hope to the confidence of real measurable progress. This whole philosophy rests on a powerful insight from behavioral science. For the small daily decisions that shape our lives, a well-designed system will always outperform raw, exhausting willpower. But to build that system, we first have to understand the powerful currents within our own minds that it must navigate. The reason discipline so often breaks down under pressure is because your brain is hardwired with a powerful preference for the present moment. It's a cognitive feature known as present bias. If you offer it a small reward today versus a significantly larger one next month, it will almost always clamor for the immediate gratification. This isn't a weakness of character. It's a remnant of an ancient survival instinct that prioritized the certain present over an uncertain future. This is why, standing at the checkout, the urge to add just one more item can feel irresistible. Your brain magnifies the pleasure of having it now and dramatically discounts the distant, abstract consequence of a bill that will arrive weeks later. Simultaneously, another deep-seated force is at work: loss aversion. We are neurologically programmed to feel the sting of a loss about twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This is the engine behind the fear of missing out, or FOMO, which is one of the most potent tools in modern marketing. The thought of missing a limited-time offer or not getting the item before it sells out triggers this profound aversion to loss. It creates a quiet but intense internal pressure, making you willing to pay more or buy sooner just to avoid that uncomfortable feeling of having missed an opportunity. It nudges you toward decisions you might not have made in a calmer moment. Then there is the powerful effect of scarcity. When you feel that your resources are stretched thin, whether it's money, time, or even just mental energy, your brain enters a state of tunnel vision. It dedicates all of its available bandwidth to solving the most immediate, pressing problem in front of you, like figuring out how to cover a bill that's due tomorrow. In this state, your capacity for long-term planning, for weighing complex trade-offs, and for impulse control is severely diminished. This is why financial stress often leads to a cycle of poor decisions. Your cognitive resources are simply maxed out. Trying to fight these three powerful currents, present bias, loss aversion, and scarcity, with sheer willpower is like trying to swim directly upstream in a powerful river. You might make a little headway, but you will inevitably become exhausted. The more intelligent approach is not to become a stronger swimmer, but to change your position so the current starts working with you. The very first step in this process is to get an honest, non-judgmental look at where that current is taking you right now. So for the next 7 days, just track your impulse purchase count. Don't try to fix it. Don't judge yourself. Simply get a number. This baseline is the starting point from which we will begin to change the context, not your character. Just knowing your impulse count is a start, but the number itself is a little like an error light on a car's dashboard. It tells you something is wrong, but not what the underlying cause is. It's a symptom, not a diagnosis. To truly understand the why behind your buying, you have to connect the transaction to its emotional trigger. This calls for a different kind of log. For the next week, don't just note what you spent. Add a single word describing how you were feeling right before you made the purchase. Were you bored, stressed, happy, lonely, celebrating? Keep it incredibly simple. You are not writing a deep diary entry. You are collecting data points to create a personal map of your emotional spending landscape. After just a few days of this simple practice, patterns will begin to emerge from the noise. You might discover that a feeling of boredom on a weekday afternoon consistently precedes a session of scrolling through online stores. Or perhaps you'll notice that a particularly stressful day at the office is almost always followed by an order for expensive, comforting takeout. That feeling of wanting to fit in at a group dinner might directly correlate with agreeing to split another bottle of wine you didn't really want or need. These are not random acts of financial sabotage. They are predictable, automated loops where a specific feeling triggers a specific financial action. You are transforming your vague sense of post-purchase regret into a clear, visible dashboard of your personal high-risk situations. Once you can see the trigger, you can design an effective intervention. The objective is not to suppress the emotion. That's an unwinnable war. The objective is to insert a deliberate pause, a moment of breathing room between the feeling and the financial transaction. For the top 2 or 3 emotional triggers you've identified, pre-commit to a specific cooling off action. If stress is the trigger, the rule might be, when I feel stressed and want to order comfort food, I will first put the items in the online cart, close the tab, and wait for 1 hour. If boredom is the trigger, it could be, when I feel bored and get the urge to shop online, I will first stand up and walk around for 5 minutes. Other powerful pauses include moving an item to a wish list for 48 hours or taking 2 minutes to search for a better price on a different site. These actions are not about denial. They are about introducing just enough friction to disrupt the automated loop. They give your rational, long-term thinking brain a chance to catch up with your impulsive, immediate gratification-seeking brain. As you start practicing this, watch what happens to your impulse purchase count. It should begin to decline, not because you're fighting yourself with more force, but because you've learned to recognize the signal and gracefully step off the well-worn path to an impulsive purchase. Identifying your emotional triggers is a powerful defensive strategy. It helps you sidestep the financial pitfalls that your own feelings can create. But a strong defense alone doesn't lead to a fulfilling life. To actively build the financial future you want, you need a powerful offense, and that offense is guided by your values. Without a clear understanding of what is truly important to you, your money will lack direction. It will be pulled about by the currents of marketing, social expectations, and your own fleeting moods. A budget that isn't anchored to your core values is like a sandcastle. It has no internal structure and will crumble under the slightest pressure. So the next exercise is to articulate what we can call your money script. This is not a spreadsheet, it's a declaration of your priorities. Take a moment to write down the 3 things that are most important for you to cultivate in your life right now. These should be broad but meaningful concepts like security, growth, connection, freedom, health, or generosity. Then get specific. Security might mean building a 6-month emergency fund. Growth could mean having the resources to take a course that advances your career. Connection might mean being able to afford regular trips to visit family. These are your non-negotiables. This is where you want your money to be an active and powerful tool. Just as importantly, on that same page, create a list titled "Not for Me right now." This is where you make conscious, strategic decisions about which areas of spending you are going to intentionally deprioritize. This might include things like designer clothing, the latest tech gadgets, or frequent fine dining. This is not a list of bad things. It is a list of things that are not aligned with your top 3 priorities at this moment. This act of conscious exclusion is incredibly liberating. It makes daily trade-offs remarkably simple. When you're faced with a spending decision, you no longer have to rely on vague, conflicted feelings. You can ask a straightforward question: does this purchase serve my core values, or does it fall onto my not for me list? As you begin to filter your decisions through this script, you'll notice a natural shift. More of your resources will flow toward things that bring you genuine, lasting satisfaction. And you should see your impulse purchase count continue to fall because those reactive buys rarely serve our deepest, most considered values. With your values acting as a compass, we can now perform a more precise intervention on the specific habits that consistently pull you off course. A common mistake people make is trying to simply stop a bad habit, like mindlessly opening a shopping app whenever they have a spare moment. But habits are deeply ingrained neurological pathways. You can't just delete them and expect them to stay gone. The brain resists a vacuum. A far more effective approach is to replace the bad habit rather than trying to erase it. This is a form of behavioral surgery where we keep the beginning and the end of the habit loop, but carefully swap out the routine in the middle. Every habit, good or bad, consists of three parts: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is the trigger that sets the entire loop in motion. The routine is the action you perform. The reward is the positive feeling or outcome you receive, which reinforces the brain's desire to repeat the loop next time. Your task is to become a detective of your own behavior. For your most problematic spending habits, identify the specific cues that set them off. These triggers usually fall into one of a few categories: a particular time of day, like the 3 p.m. energy slump, a specific location, walking past a favorite coffee shop, or an emotional state, feeling overwhelmed or anxious. Once you've pinpointed the cue, the real work begins. The secret is to keep the cue and the reward, but design a new, better routine to sit between them. Let's say you identify a loop. The cue is feeling stressed after a long meeting. The routine is browsing for deals on Amazon. And the reward is a feeling of mental distraction and a small dopamine hit from finding something. You can't eliminate the stress of the meeting, and your brain still craves that reward of decompression. So you design a new routine. When the cue hits, that feeling of post-meeting stress, your new pre-planned action might be to spend 10 minutes listening to a favorite podcast, doing a few quick stretches, or messaging a friend about something completely unrelated. This new routine must deliver a similar reward, a sense of a mental shift and relief. Write this down as a clear, actionable plan. If I feel stressed after a meeting, then I will listen to one song from my favorite playlist. Identify your top 3 problematic spending loops and create these if-then replacement plans. Each time you successfully execute the new routine, you are weakening the old neural pathway and strengthening the new one. As you rewrite these loops, the number of impulsive, reactive buys will naturally drop because you are moving from running on autopilot to making a conscious, better choice. Changing your internal habits is a monumental step, but it's only half the equation. We are constantly navigating an external environment that is expertly engineered to encourage spending. One-click checkout, save payment information, buy now, pay later options, and hyper-targeted ads are all forms of flow designed to remove every possible obstacle between your impulse and a completed transaction. To counteract this powerful external force, we must become the architects of our own environment. We need to intentionally introduce friction to slow down our spending, while simultaneously removing friction to accelerate our saving. Think of it this way. Our task is to make it slightly harder to do the things we want to do less of, and effortlessly easy to do the things we want to do more of. Let's start by adding friction to spending. Go into your accounts on your most used online stores and delete your saved credit card information. That simple act of having to get up, find your wallet, and manually type in the 16 digits can provide just enough of a pause to make you reconsider an impulsive purchase. Unsubscribe from the marketing emails that flood your inbox with tempting deals. Move your shopping apps off your phone's home screen and into a folder, requiring an extra, deliberate tap to open them. For any non-essential purchase over a certain amount, say $50, implement a personal 24-hour waiting period. If you still genuinely want it a day later, you're free to buy it. But this cooling off period will filter out a vast amount of desire driven purely by immediate impulse. At the same time, you need to create a smooth, frictionless, downhill path for your savings. This is where you create positive flow. The most powerful tool for this is automation. Set up automatic transfers to your savings and investment accounts that execute the very day you get paid, before you even have a chance to feel like that money is available for spending. Automate all of your recurring bill payments so you never have to think about them or risk a costly late fee. The objective is to make saving and responsible bill paying the default setting, the path of least resistance. The verification for this strategy is straightforward. Look at your two key metrics. Your impulse purchase count should be decreasing because the added friction is doing its job. And your automation coverage, the percentage of your savings goals and essential bills that are handled automatically, should be steadily increasing. You're re-engineering the system so that your environment, rather than your finite willpower, does the heavy lifting of keeping you on track. Once you've started to slow the outflow of impulsive spending and automate the inflow to your savings, you've created the stability needed to build a more resilient structure for managing your money. Many people are repelled by the idea of budgeting because they imagine a suffocating spreadsheet with 100 tiny categories. When you have to track every single coffee and categorize it separately from your lunch, you're setting yourself up for burnout. The system is too complex to maintain. What we're aiming for isn't perfect accounting. It's practical, sustainable control. A far more effective approach is to use a simplified bucket system using just 5 to 7 broad categories that genuinely reflect the priorities of your life. These buckets act as large, flexible containers for your spending. A solid starting framework might include essentials, housing, utilities, transportation, groceries; future, savings, investments, retirement; debt freedom, any payments you make above the minimums; growth, education, books, courses; and fun, hobbies, dining out, entertainment. To this, you might add a bucket for giving and one absolutely critical container called a sinking fund. This sinking fund is designated for predictable but irregular expenses, things like annual insurance premiums, car maintenance, or holiday gifts. These are the expenses that consistently derail a traditional monthly budget because they don't occur every month. By automatically transferring a small amount into this fund regularly, you smooth out those financial bumps. When your car inevitably needs new tires, the money is simply there, waiting. It's no longer a financial crisis. It's just a plan for expense. The final and perhaps most useful bucket is a small buffer. This is a designated amount of cash that lives in your primary checking account, designed to absorb minor miscalculations and prevent the stress and cost of overdrafts. It's the financial equivalent of a little breathing room. Once your buckets are defined, you allocate your income into them according to your plan. The power of this system is its simplicity. You're no longer micromanaging 50 different line items. You're just ensuring your spending stays within the boundaries of a few large, meaningful categories. You'll know it's working when you find yourself robbing Peter to pay Paul less and less. The money for the annual car registration is in its sinking fund, not being pulled from your grocery money. The financial volatility in your life becomes smaller and more manageable, replaced by a sense of calm and predictability. With a stable budget structure in place, you can now apply the same clear, systematic thinking to the often overwhelming task of tackling debt. For many, debt feels like a monolithic, immovable weight. A significant part of that feeling comes from being trapped in analysis paralysis, endlessly debating the theoretically perfect strategy. Should you use the avalanche method, focusing on the highest interest debt first to save the most money in the long run? Or should you use the snowball method, focusing on paying off the smallest debts first to gain quick, motivating psychological wins? The truth that is often missed in these debates is that the mathematical difference between the methods is frequently less important than the behavioral one. The best method is whichever one you will actually stick with. Progress, no matter how small, consistently beats perfect planning that never translates into action. So the first step is to simply make a choice and commit. Lay out all your debts, pick a strategy, avalanche or snowball, and get started. Once you've chosen your path, the most important thing is to create and maintain momentum. And momentum is fueled by visible progress. Create some form of visual tracker. This could be a simple chart on your wall where you color in a square for every $100 you pay off, or a spreadsheet that automatically graphs your remaining balance as it declines. You need to be able to see your progress. Our brains are not designed to appreciate slow, incremental change without some kind of visual aid. Relying on your memory of what the balance was last month is simply not enough to keep your motivation high over the long haul. Then inject a small dose of automation into your plan. Set up a recurring, automatic extra payment, even if it's just $25 a month, to your chosen target debt. This does two crucial things. First, it guarantees consistent, accelerated progress without any further effort on your part. Second, it serves as a constant, automated vote of confidence in your goal. Finally, celebrate small milestones. When you completely pay off one card or when you hit a significant reduction in your total balance, take a moment to acknowledge it. This isn't about rewarding yourself with more spending. It's about pausing to recognize the effort and reinforcing the positive feeling associated with making progress. By making your progress visible and your commitment automatic, you transform a daunting, abstract burden into a manageable and even motivating process. As you begin to clear away the large boulders of consumer debt, it's time to turn your attention to the small, silent leaks that can slowly drain your financial reservoir. In the modern economy, one of the most common and insidious leaks is the subscription. That free trial you signed up for and forgot to cancel, the streaming service you haven't used in months, the premium app you subscribed to for a single project. Individually, they seem insignificant, just a few dollars here and there. But collectively, they can add up to a substantial sum, a constant, quiet drip that erodes your power to make bigger, more meaningful choices with your money. The core problem with the subscription model is its automated opt-out design. The default setting is to keep charging you, relying on your inertia and inattention. To regain control, you must flip this default. The first step is a comprehensive subscription audit. Go through your bank and credit card statements for the last 3 to 6 months and create a master list of every single recurring charge. Don't guess or estimate. Find the actual transactions. Next to each subscription on your list, assign it 2 tags. The first tag is its usage frequency: daily, weekly, occasional, or never. Be brutally honest with yourself. The second tag is your renewal decision. For everything on the list, the new default choice must be cancel. You have to actively justify keeping it. For anything you've tagged as occasional or never use, cancel it immediately today. If you find you genuinely miss it, you can always sign up again. For the subscriptions you do use regularly, set a calendar reminder for 1 week before the next renewal date. This simple action forces you to make a conscious, active choice each time, rather than letting it renew silently in the background. Finally, and this is the step that makes the exercise truly powerful, take the exact amount of money you've saved from the canceled subscriptions and immediately reallocate it. Set up a new automatic transfer for that sum, directing it into your future bucket or your debt repayment plan. This action is transformative. It turns what was once a passive financial drain into an active tool for building your wealth. By doing this, you're not just plugging leaks in your budget. You're increasing your overall automation coverage and ensuring that every single dollar has a job that you have consciously and deliberately assigned to it. Once your internal financial systems are becoming more robust, you can turn to address one of the most powerful external forces affecting your spending: social pressure. We are fundamentally social creatures, and our deep-seated desire to belong is a powerful driver of our behavior. This is why it can feel so incredibly difficult to say no when friends suggest an expensive dinner, or why we feel a constant, low-grade pull to keep up with the lifestyles we see portrayed around us. The fear of being perceived as cheap or the anxiety of missing out on shared experiences can easily lead us to make spending decisions that completely derail our financial goals. The solution, however, is not to isolate yourself and become a hermit. It's to develop smart, pre-planned boundaries that allow you to participate socially without sacrificing your financial well-being. The key is to shift from being reactive in the moment to being proactive ahead of time. You don't have to be trapped in a binary choice between all in or not at all. You can create a third option. Before you find yourself in a high-pressure situation, prepare a few gentle, pre-rehearsed scripts for declining an invitation or suggesting an alternative. If a friend suggests a trendy, expensive restaurant, your prepared response might be, "That place sounds incredible, but it's a bit out of my budget this month." Would you be open to trying that new taco spot instead? Or maybe we could grab a drink and catch up. Having these phrases ready to go removes the awkwardness and the cognitive load of having to invent a diplomatic response on the spot. It is also vital to treat the fun bucket in your budget as a real hard boundary. Decide ahead of time how much you are willing and able to spend on social activities for the month. When that money is gone, it's gone. This isn't about depriving yourself. It's about making conscious, deliberate choices about which social events are most important to you. After a social event where you've successfully stuck to your plan, it's also wise to do a quick check-in. Sometimes after a period of restraint, we can fall victim to compensatory spending, overspending later to make up for, feeling like we missed out. By being aware of this tendency, you can guard against it. Your goal is to ensure your impulse purchase count doesn't spike in response to social situations. You can be fully present and deeply connected with the people you care about, without your financial future becoming a casualty of the moment. All of these strategies, managing your emotions, clarifying your values, replacing your habits, and setting boundaries, are incredibly powerful, but they all require a degree of conscious effort and attention. The ultimate goal, the point at which you achieve true financial peace of mind, is when the right things happen automatically, freeing up your finite mental energy for more creative and important pursuits. This is where the principle of pay yourself first becomes a central, load-bearing pillar of your entire financial structure. It's a simple concept with a profound impact. The single most important bill you pay each month is the one to your future self. This means that before you pay for your rent, before you buy groceries, before a single dollar is allocated to discretionary fund, you direct money toward your savings and investment goals. The most effective way to guarantee this happens without fail is through automation. You arrange a recurring transfer from your primary checking account to your savings or investment accounts, scheduled for the very day your paycheck arrives. The money is moved before you even see it, before you have a chance to mentally earmark it for something else. It becomes part of the invisible financial plumbing of your life, working for you silently and reliably in the background. You should apply this same automated logic to all of your essential recurring bills. Automate as many of them as you can. This not only saves you the mental overhead of remembering multiple due dates, but also provides a powerful shield against the costly and frustrating experience of late fees. You can even simplify further by trying to consolidate your bill payments. If possible, contact your service providers and ask to align your due dates so that most of your major bills are withdrawn around the same time, perhaps in one or two predictable batches per month. The two clear signs of success here are, once again, tied directly to your key metrics. First, your automation coverage for all fixed savings and bills should be steadily climbing toward 100%. Second, your payments for late fees should drop to zero. When this happens, you have successfully shifted the heavy burden of execution from your fallible daily memory to a reliable, automated system that runs itself. Once you have a robust, automated system operating for a stable income, you can confidently adapt it to one of the most common and stressful financial situations: irregular income. For freelancers, gig workers, artists, or anyone with a commission-based job, the idea of a fixed monthly budget can seem completely unworkable when your income can swing wildly from one month to the next. The temptation is to abandon structure entirely and simply react to whatever money comes in. But the solution isn't to give up on budgeting. It's to shift your approach from a fixed amount budget to a fixed percentage one. You transform the problem of irregular income into a solution of regular allocation rules. First, you must establish your financial baseline. Calculate the absolute bare minimum amount of money you need to cover your core essential expenses each month: housing, utilities, food, and minimum debt payments. This number is your floor. Your primary financial goal each month is simply to ensure this floor is fully funded. As income arrives throughout the month, your first priority is to allocate it to cover this baseline. After your floor is covered, you apply a predetermined, percentage-based allocation to every dollar that comes in after that. For example, you might decide that of any income above your baseline, 50% is immediately transferred to a future bucket for taxes and long-term savings, 30% goes into a buffer account to help fund next month's baseline, and 20% is allocated to your fun and growth buckets. These percentages are your unwavering rules, and they apply whether the paycheck is large or small. In a great month, your savings get a massive boost. In a lean month, you might only cover your baseline, but the system itself remains intact and you don't go into debt. The buffer account is the critical shock absorber in this model. In flush months, you fill it up. In lean months, you draw from it to ensure your baseline expenses are still met without stress. The system is working if you can consistently achieve two outcomes. Your essential bills are always paid on time, and your automation coverage for those bills remains high, completely undisturbed by the volatility of your income. You've created a stable financial life on top of an unstable income stream. No system, no matter how brilliantly designed, runs perfectly forever without some form of maintenance. Life is dynamic. Your priorities will shift, your income might change, and small, unintentional deviations can creep into your habits over time. To keep your financial system aligned with your life and working effectively, it requires a regular, low-stress check-in. This is not a dreaded, hours-long accounting session filled with guilt and regret. Think of it instead as a money date, a short, consistent, and even positive ritual you establish with yourself or your partner. It's a quick feedback loop designed to ensure you stay on the path you've chosen. Schedule it on your calendar like any other important appointment, perhaps for just 15 minutes every Sunday evening. During this brief window, you perform a simple review. You are not there to judge your past behavior. You are there to look at the data to inform your next steps. You glance at your two core metrics. How did your impulse purchase count look this past week? Is your automation coverage still where it should be? You take a quick look at your bucket balances. Are you generally on track for the month? Are there any large upcoming expenses from your sinking fund that you need to be mindful of? This is also the designated time for making small, immediate course corrections. Perhaps you notice your grocery spending has been creeping up, so you decide to spend a few extra minutes planning meals for the upcoming week. Maybe you realize a subscription renewed that you had intended to cancel, so you take 2 minutes to log in and terminate it right then and there. The purpose of this regular quick check-in is to catch small deviations before they become large problems. It keeps you actively engaged with your own financial life in a calm, proactive, and forward-looking way. It replaces the cycle of anxiety and avoidance with a rhythm of awareness and control. It transforms the one-time act of fixing your finances into a continuous, dynamic process of optimizing your life.